Hi, thank you for watching my channel today. My name's Sarah and my channel is called Your True Shelf. Today is absolutely boiling, horrible hot. Not my cup of tea, don't really like this kind of weather. I've got two hot small people downstairs, so I may well get interrupted if I'm just going for it and see what happens. So I've got a massive book haul, I think at least 15 books this month. As usual, Bargain Queen over here has spent very little money on the book, so that's good. The first one is a swap I did with somebody on a Facebook group, and I got this after I saw Simon Savage talk about how much he enjoyed this one, and that is Old Baggage by Lissa Evans. This is about a lady called Matilda who was a suffragette and was in prison multiple times and led quite an exciting life when she was younger, and now she's older and she's just a little bit bored with kind of how her life is at the moment and lacks excitement, and so she starts hatching a plan, and then it says the plan could go against everything that she stands for. So it sounds sort of interesting and exciting at the same time. The next book is one that is an Oprah's book club choice, and it was also I think shortlisted for the Women's Prize a couple of years ago, and I got this from a second-hand bookshop, and that is Ruby by Cynthia Bond. I remember picking this up and putting it down when it had come out, and then when I saw it in the charity shop, second-hand bookshop, I decided to pick it up. So this is about a girl called Ruby who grew up in the 1950s, no, before that, earlier than that, in Texas, and suffered a very difficult traumatic childhood. And there's a boy there called Ephraim who has never forgotten about her after she moves away in the 50s and goes to live in New York. Then it says when she's a little bit older she has to go back to where she grew up, and Ephraim is torn between his sister who raised him and Ruby, and I think she has to revisit some dark stuff from her past. So that is that one, and it's always a good sign for me if it's an Oprah's book club, because that means to me it's going to be really good. The next one is another one from the same second-hand bookshop of an author whose work I'm now collecting, and he's very popular on BookTube, and that is The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. So I read The Night Watch earlier this year, I think it was this year, and really loved it. And I have collected several of Sarah Waters' works, and The Little Stranger I went to see the film of in the cinema, and it was brilliant. It was really scary. I had to come home and try and calm down before I could go to bed because it really scared me. So I know what the plot's about. It's basically set in an old house of a family who are kind of really poor, and well, they're not, they're kind of asset rich and, you know, money poor, and there is a doctor who is coming in the house to visit the family and the servants because some strange goings on have been witnessed. So yeah, it's a ghostly story, and really good film, so I've got high hopes for the book. The next book is one which I wasn't sure if I already had in the shop, and I took a risk and I didn't have it. I had a different one by the same author which I haven't read yet, and this was a Richard and Judy summer read, so again it's a good sign, and that is The Outcast by Sadie Jones. This is about a young man called Lewis, set in the aftermath of World War II in the 1950s, and it says that he is coming back home on a train, and there's only one person who's waiting for him, which is a teenage girl. And then it says it jumps back to 10 years earlier when him and his mum were waiting for his dad to come back from the war, and it talks about a stifling post-war atmosphere, and what happens to the family, to him and his dad, when tragedy strikes and the family is torn apart. So and it's described as gripping and riveting, so that sounds like it's probably going to be quite a nice easy read, and if I like it, I know I've got another Sadie Jones book which I haven't read yet. The next book is one I know nothing about, but my mum had gone through some of her books and left a massive pile for me to look through, and a few of them I took, well, quite a lot of them I took to charity shops, but some of them I took for myself, and this is one of them. I really don't know what it's about because there's no synopsis, but this is called Porterhouse Blue by Tom Sharpe. This has got quotes on it from PG Wodehouse, and I think it's set at maybe at Cambridge University. I think it's kind of going to be quite in the similar vein to maybe Jeeves and Wooster, that kind of humour. So I thought that I would give it a try, and I think it's probably going to be quite a quick read. I'll just see how long ago it was published. So from 1974, so just interesting to try something completely different, especially when you don't really know what it's about. Next we have a classic from a secondhand bookshop. I find with classics I'm often put off by the fact that I think they're either going to be difficult to read or really slow or really long, and then when I do read them, which isn't that often, I'm actually normally pleasantly surprised. And I know that Victober's coming up soon, as my friend Jo reminded me last night, and so this one would fit the bill for that. This is The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. So I haven't read any of George Eliot's works before, and this one isn't as big as Middlemarch, so it didn't daunt me as much. Yeah, so I think I'd like to just give it a go and see. It says it's set in rural England, centering on Maggie Tulliver, whose passionate and imaginative nature brings her into conflict with the middle-class narrowness of St Ogg's, and more poignantly with her beloved brother Tom, one of her best-loved works, and a study of provincial life. So yeah, we'll just give it a go and see. And there's a really beautiful painting on the front cover. This is a Penguin Classics edition, so yeah, just see. The next one is one that I actually bought for my mum, and she said she enjoyed it, but it was quite bleak. So this is called Random Acts of Heroic Love by Danny Scheinmann. Not one that I am familiar with, the book or the author. This is set in the very end of the First World War. There's one character called Moritz who has been abandoned in the Siberian wilderness, and he remembers having one kiss with a girl called Lotta before he goes to war, and he's hoping that she's still waiting for him when he gets back. What? Then there's another man called Leo, and his story is set in 1992. He's woken up in a hospital somewhere in South America, and his girlfriend is dead, and he doesn't know how and why he's in South America in the hospital. And it says that obviously the two stories are linked somehow, and it's about two men's journey as they try and sustain themselves with the memory of love. The next book is another one that I got from my mum, and that is called Before the Fall by Juliet West. This is set in World War I again, about a lady called Hannah whose husband is away at war. She's in the East End of London, and then she meets another man called Daniel who she starts to fall in love with, and she doesn't know if her husband's coming back or when, and so she's got to decide what she's going to do, and obviously suffer the consequences, no doubt, afterwards. So that is that one. I then got this little tiny book from the secondhand bookshop at Blickling Hall. I remember when I went there about a year ago, I saw it, but the woman who was working at the till was reading it, so I couldn't get it, and it's actually there today, and it's in perfect condition. And that is The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett. It's a little tiny novella. It's basically about the Queen, about her taking a book out of the library, and then basically her liking it so much that her public duties start to suffer, and she just wants to spend all of her time reading. So yeah, that sounds like it's going to be really cute and enjoyable. The next one is one that I got for free because, as I've mentioned many times, in my village there is a secondhand book swap where you can leave whatever books you want and take whatever books you want, and no money is involved. And I saw this book, and I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't really know how to explain it, but I just thought the cover drew me in. I just thought it sounds interesting because it's completely different to anything I've read before. So it's called The Red Tent by Anita Diamant. I'm just going to read the back because I don't really know how to explain it otherwise. So it says, her name is Dinah. In the Bible, her fate is merely hinted at in a brief and violent detour within the verses of the book of Genesis that recount the life of Jacob and his infamous dozen sons. The Red Tent is an extraordinary and engrossing tale of ancient womanhood and family honour. Told in Dinah's voice, it opens with the story of her mothers, the 4 wives of Jacob, each of whom embodies unique feminine traits, and concludes with Dinah's own startling and unforgettable story of betrayal, grief and love. So I've never read anything set in biblical times. I just think it's kind of like, I guess, a retelling from a female perspective of what's probably a well-known story, and so it interested me from that point of view. So we're now on to the final 5. Sounds a bit like The Apprentice. Oh, I can hear a child crying, hold on. Okay, I've been invaded by children, so we'll see how this goes. So my next book is another one that I picked up in a charity shop, and this is called Inconceivable by Ben Elton. This, I've read one Ben Elton book before. I think it's called The First Casualty, and that was enjoyable, so I've picked up another one. This, as you may guess, is about IVF from the front cover. So it says Lucy desperately wants a baby, and her husband Sam also wants a baby, but he's trying to write a hit film. They're going through IVF and having problems, and it talks about whether their relationship is going to survive. So this is The Winter House by Nicci Gerrard. This is about a 3 friends, Marnie, Ralph and Oliver, who used to be really close, and then something happened, and Marnie gets a phone call lots of years later to say that I think Ralph is dying, and they all go to a Scottish Highlands cottage to sort of spend Ralph's last few days together, and I think they then revisit lots of past events, and the cover's really beautiful, and it's snowy, so I think one for cold weather. Then the final avalanche, the final 2, so one of them is one that I've heard nothing but amazing praise for on Goodreads, especially from Lauren and the Books, whose tastes are very similar to mine, and Simon from Savage Reads. And this is in mint condition, even though it's a second-hand book buy. I got it for £1.80, and that is The Heart's Invisible Furies by Boyne. So I know this follows the life of Cyril Avery from the moment of his conception to his death, and his mum is a 16-year-old unmarried mother. And yeah, I know this is I don't know too much more about it other than it's supposed to be fantastic. It's quite a long book, but I know that Lauren and Simon both said that they thought about the characters for a long time after reading it, and like I say, I've heard just good things, so I couldn't not buy it. And then my final book, which is another second-hand bookshop buy, I just liked the title really, and it's a fictionalised version of the author's life, and it is called How to Fall in Love with a Man Who Lives in a Bush. And I just liked the cover and the title. So basically Julia is single and working in Vienna at a language school, and she is looking for Mr. Right, and she's had lots of dates which have gone badly wrong, and then she sits on a bench and meets Ben, and it says he is tall, dark, handsome, incredibly hairy, barefoot and bit ripe smelling, and of no fixed abode, and they end up falling in love. So I was just really interested on how that happened, seeing as it's kind of based on true events, and yeah, that just interested me, that synopsis on the back. So I'm back in a different outfit because this is a different day, and when I went to edit this video, the sound had gone completely out of sync with the video for one of the bits and for all the bit I did at the end. So I'm just going to quickly reform that one bit and my goodbye bit. So this is the last bit. This book is called Italian Ways, On and Off the Rails from Milan to Palermo by Tim Parks. This is a non-fiction book. Tim Parks is an English journalist who has lived in Italy since 1981. As you can hear, there are children in here, sorry about the noise. And this is his diaries of the people he meets and the journeys he takes on the railways across Italy. I read one other book by Tim Parks called Teach Us to Sit Still, which was okay, but it was a bit self-indulgent, boring. Sorry. So I've got higher hopes for this one. And this is another second-hand one. So that was all of the 15 books that I hauled. So sorry about the second PS part. I think I spent about £15 in total on the whole 15 books because some of them were free. And let me know if you've read any of them. Let me know anything good that you've hauled recently, and let me know your thoughts on the books. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel or give this a thumbs up, obviously please do so, and I'd look forward to having a chat in the comments with you about the books. Hope you're having a lovely week. Bye.